Welcome to Author Mastery Insights. I'm with Dr. Jason Saunders. Welcome, Dr. Jason. Great to connect with you.
Great to be here. Thanks so much for having me on, Marcus.
Yeah, I always love speaking with you. The insight that you bring to any conversation, profound. And I'm excited to share a little bit about this book. I love the message. I love the simplicity, but the power as well. We're going to talk about that. But before we do, for those not familiar with Dr. Jason, he graduated summa cum laude from New York Chiropractic College. He's the owner and the clinic director of Core Therapy's Family Wellness Center, also in New Jersey, Hyperbaric Oxygen Therapy and Hyperbaric Oxygen Therapy USA. He also is on the faculties of Medical Academy of Pediatric Special Needs and the International Hyperbaric Association, educating other doctors on alternative and complementary treatment methods. He also guest lectures at functional medicine conferences and uses nutrition, fasting, red light therapy, and hyperbaric oxygen to help treat chronic illnesses plaguing the world, the country, and where he operates. But we're going to talk as an author, and a number of books there, Dr. Jason. Oxygen Under Pressure, using hyperbaric oxygen to restore health, reduce inflammation, reverse aging, and revolutionize healthcare. Which is a fascinating topic in and of itself. But today, as I said, I want to talk about wellness to the core. And I love this. Be fit, be nourished, be balanced beyond the limitations of traditional medicine. And really that brings about wellness. It brings about health. It brings about an opportunity to live a lifestyle that you want. And I think the message is so important. I wanted to share that message. I also wanted to share the vision you have for bringing this information to the community. So let's start with, what's the book about?
So as you can imagine, when I wrote that book, I don't even remember what year that was, but when I wrote that book, maybe 06, 07, I'm not even sure.
2014 version.
Oh, 2000, okay. So that was actually second version. So, when I first wrote that book, it was literally out of frustration, where I felt like, how many times am I going to say the same things to my patients? And so, that book represents a culmination of the chiropractic story. A lot of patients, even for us, we have a very, we're 99% cash, we do very little insurance. Most of our patients are very healthy, they're active, they want to take good care of themselves. Once in a while, somebody gets hurt, so we're treating them through some active recovery. But for the most part, we have a very large, I'd say, wellness practice. And even with that, we found that patients were missing the bigger picture. And maybe that's my fault. Maybe, we're spending time at the table and we're not focused, wholly on, the messaging of chiropractic. But so I would find out, like, oh my God, I can't believe that's how you eat. Or, oh my God, how many times have we had this conversation? Did you not hear me the first 11 times? And so after, years and years of treating patients and feeling like either I was missing certain messages that I wanted to make sure that I conveyed, or I was repeating myself and just tired of doing it, I literally, from start to finish, tried to culminate as much of the message of chiropractic, which to me is that three-dimensional approach to health, right? Dealing with our physical health, our emotional health, and our biochemical or our nutritional health. And so, to me, it represents that balance of those three stressors, ultimately looking for, toxicity and deficiency, as we all talk about, like, too much of the bad things going in, not enough of the good things going in. And that's, again, three-dimensionally, physical, chemical, and emotional. And so really trying to deliver a hopefully well-rounded message around that whole concept so that people understood there's so much they could be doing to always be improving their health.
Love it. And, I think you don't need to hope that message comes across. I think it elegantly and I'd even say powerfully comes across, because it's well communicated. It's well backed in terms of not just what you say and how you say it, but the information that leads to the conclusions that are drawn. So I just want to acknowledge and appreciate that. What I want to really say here is, I think it's really interesting. You spoke about the frustration you have and wanting to repeat messages time and again. In our practices, most chiropractors emphasize or focus upon the adjustment. There's my table in the back. We get, the patient, the client, the practice member, whatever term people use, and we do the adjustments. But the adjustments can be limited or diminished by what they do when they leave the practice. If they go out there straight after their adjustment and say, well, now that I'm adjusted, I can do anything that I want. I'm invincible. I can have my Big Macs and my cheeseburgers, and I can down a couple of liters of soft drink, and then I can stay up all night, get no sleep, and I can work 80 hours a week without any concern. That's simply not true. You've dealt with one of the core philosophical tenets of chiropractic, the 3Ts, within this book, and the support that having the 3Ts to a chiropractic care program, I feel, and I know obviously by your book, you feel it's essential that we support the lifestyle choices that people make, encourage better ones to get the maximum benefit through the care we deliver. So how do you see the 3Ts, the wellness to the core principles, interacting with the care program within your practice?
For me, and again, this doesn't have to be everybody else's version. For me, I've always been, my background was exercise physiology before I got into chiropractic. Nutrition has been a huge part of my practice. I've been doing AK since I even knew what chiropractic was. That's always been part of my, history and story and my approach. So for me, I'm always trying to talk about and deal with all three areas. I want the adjustment, and I want their movements. I want their stress under control. I want to, teaching, I don't get into, obviously in an adjustment, this time might be more limited, but we at least talk about the meditation. We talk about breathing techniques. We talk about the effect that emotional stress has. We talk about the interaction, which I bring up in the book. Your body's stress response doesn't know if it's a tiger chasing you or a Big Mac you just ate. Once the alarm bells go off, the alarm bells go off. And so emotional stress can trigger physical or chemical stress. Chemical stress can trigger emotional. And so I really want people to understand that they can't get away. You can't, just like back in the day with exercise training, you can't exercise your way out of a bad diet. People would say that based on weight alone, but that's just true, of all of our chemistry. We can't ignore the other pieces. There are plenty of people, people talk about the guy, I don't run because, I heard that there was a guy who died from a heart attack and he was like a marathon runner. He ran every day. So like clearly he was healthy. He was a runner and he still died of a heart attack. Therefore, I shouldn't run. And you don't know what else was going on in that guy. You don't know what his diet was like. You don't know what his emotional stress was like. What was he going through at that time? So, we can't just limit our picture of a person based on, one or even two of those areas. We really have to look at all three. And then for chiros that, not everybody loves doing as much of the nutrition or talking about as much of like stress management, that's okay. As long as you recognize that it plays a role in that patient's care and have a way to just nudge them in a direction or open a door for them in a certain direction to enlighten them and give them the ability to take control of that if they choose, at least it's part of the conversation.
Absolutely. And what you could be doing is, I don't know enough about diet, exercise, and nutrition to be able to help you, but give them a copy of this book and say, hey, read this, bring it into balance. That's part of the chiropractic lifestyle. I'm going to adjust you, jump on the table. You can simplify that message. You don't have to own the lifestyle principles, but incorporating it, providing information for that is brilliant. And what that means then is, as you said, we have this conversation. You want to be clear on incorporating these messages that influence health. How is that received when you as an author and providing this education, this book within a practice? What type of change takes place within the mind of the patient, within the level of respect they provide you, or the authority that you have, having this this book, having this position as a published author? How does that change the perception of you from the patient in terms of their responsiveness, their interest, and even their actions?
Absolutely. Great question. So the second book I wrote, which was the oxygen book you were referring to, I did that on purpose. But this book, Wellness to the Core, I had no idea what that effect was going to be. I didn't write it for that purpose. And it never even occurred to me that there could be a shift. It was strictly like, I'm going to stop talking now. You just read this. And when you're done reading this, then I'll be willing to have this conversation with you. But to your point, I was surprised. So, people, obviously they were coming, they trusted me. I was their doc. We've had good rapport, whatever. Even patients I had been treating for years. As soon as that book came out, they were like, "Oh my God, you wrote a book? Oh my God, what is it?" And then they would read it and they'd be like surprised what was in there. I'm like, we had these conversations, but it's different when you sit down and it's like a focused, right? I write the way I think I write the way I talk. And so, the book is I think it's very conversational that way. So it's kind of like they're just listening to me, talk throughout the book, and they would come in and be like, "I never really understood it this way, or never understood it that way, or now I'm finally seeing what you've been trying to tell me." They needed like that concentrated conversation to occur in order to fully absorb it, it seemed. But within the practice, whether it was patients that I was treating or even patients, because we have other docs in our office, they're like, "Oh, one of the doctors here, wrote this book," and they would read, and it totally changed the perception of the clinic as a whole. All of a sudden, one of the docs here wrote this book, and people shared it with friends and family, or "Hey, you should come to my chiropractor, he wrote this book," that kind of thing. And I was floored. We had probably, I don't know, I want to say, so 2014. So from probably 4 years, we had this like complete and obvious shift of mindset within the patient and the referring patients as that was like continuing. I was like, this thing should die already. And it like wouldn't, patients were still new patients coming in. "Oh my God, you wrote a book." I was like, "Yeah, I wrote it like 3 years ago." They're like, "No, it's amazing." So it's something that continues, now it's almost, well, it's like 8-9 years since that version came. Like, the other book, I wrote the other book. So that one has taken a little bit more of like interest in the clinic. But at the end of the day, people are still, very intrigued that one of their doctors wrote this book and want to be a part of it. It was remarkable, the mind shift that we saw in our patients.
And you did mention in terms of oxygen under pressure, which is your book on hyperbaric oxygen and its role in health. And I'm anticipating the answer to this question because I want to bring that into it as well. I mean, you're an incredible thought leader, and you have practices. You deliver education in the area of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. You train. You even make chambers accessible to practitioners. So you've got a massive area of influence here. And I think you alluded to that writing the book had some goal in relation to that in terms of exposure, message, and the impact that's having. So while we're not talking, while I wanted to reference this because this is close to my heart with the 3 Ts, I love what you're talking about there with your oxygen under pressure book. What was the motivation there, and how was that then received?
So just so you know, the first half of this book goes back to the same principles as wellness to the core, because I love hyperbaric oxygen, and people, obviously I'm spending, unbelievable amounts of my professional life right now, working through some challenges and trying to, shift the landscape of hyperbaric oxygen. But if you don't know the principles of stress and how they interact and the effect that has on your body, you could hyperbaric oxygen all you want, and you're still never going to achieve what you're trying. People are still chasing their symptoms. They're never going to get better until they understand how to actually get to the root causes and actually heal. So the first half of hyperbaric under pressure is, I'd say, 5 or 6 year fast forward in my understanding of a lot of the things in wellness to the core, because those are the principles that actually help people heal. So just so you know, it's not like I strayed far. But, I saw a moment where hyperbaric is growing, and in my mind, hyperbaric is probably one of the most chiropractically congruent, modalities that we can offer. It's really all you're ever doing with hyperbaric is using atmospheric pressure, which we're all exposed to right now, and oxygen, which we all use right now, and you're just increasing the pressure and increasing that percentage of oxygen to create, you know, a level of oxygen that normally you couldn't absorb, and we're using oxygen as a nutrient to fulfill that need. And so I see that hyperbaric is growing, and I want chiropractors to own that, because I think we can, and I know we're capable. If we can just get out of our own way, I think that if we did do that, there's an entire industry around this technology that fits directly into our paradigm as it exists. We don't have to change who we are to adopt oxygen therapies. It's completely congruent, and it's something that patients are looking for. So when a patient calls me for hyperbaric and they say something like, "Hey doc, you know, I have really bad concussion and I'm looking for somebody to treat me. I know that it's not covered by insurance. I know that it's a little bit expensive. I know that I'm going to have to come 4 or 5 times a week. And I know I'm going to have to do that for the next 3 months. I'm just looking for somebody who will treat me." And I have a conversation. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to have to tell this guy all those things. And here they are telling me. And I'm like, oh my God, they're educating themselves about this in the outside world, and then just looking for the right place to go. And chiropractors could fill that niche. And so I really wrote that book because I knew what the first book did for me in terms of positioning myself, I guess I'll say. And I saw this opportunity for chiropractors to really benefit from hyperbaric. And again, you know, my friend Patrick Gentempo, and consulting with him and through conversations, and he's like, "Well, have you written the book yet?" I'm like, "What book?" He's like, "The book on hyperbaric oxygen and how all the things you're saying is true and how it fits this and all the things." And I'm like, "No." He's like, "You know the drill. You got to write the book." And I was like, "You're right." So I sat down and I wrote the book on hyperbaric oxygen through the eyes of the chiropractor, even though it doesn't, you know, it's not said that specifically in the book, but it's to change the paradigm of the reader to understand those processes. And then if I position myself as a chiropractor who wrote the book on oxygen, it could help expand the chiropractic use of that tool. And so that's really been the transition of, you know, why I wrote that book. And it certainly has helped that process. You know, I mean, having people like, you know, Gentempo, you know, wrote a piece in here. I had Dr. Mercola write a piece in here. And so having people who understand the technology again and how it fits the bigger picture of health, that's what it's really, right? We're selling the same thing that Wellness to the Core is here, but people are attracted to it because they're looking for the answers of hyperbaric, and I'm teaching them the principles of chiropractic through the process.
I think the congruency you speak on there, I mean, there's a beautiful chiropractic philosophical principle that says add nothing to the body but the body's own healing potential. Oxygen is within the body. It is part of our healing potential. It's what generates energy, metabolic function, and is part of the tissue repair. So it could also be add nothing to the body but the body's oxygen to support healing, repair, and regeneration. It is a chiropractic principle, and we aren't an outside in profession. We're an inside out, and oxygen's inside us, and it's utilized inside of us for that healing process. I love the fact that you've referenced the congruency there, and the niche opportunity for chiropractors to move into a field that has potential to be philosophically congruent and clinically effective. And as you said, it is an area of growth. And I think that really leads to, given that it is an area of growth, what type of opportunities or experiences have you had as an author in this area that would not have otherwise happened as a result of the book?
Yeah, so, you know, my main goal right now, as far as that goes, is, you know, I see what this tool can do for patients, number one, which is amazing. And then I see what this tool can do for practitioners, which is, you know, I love patients, I love patient care, and, you know, these two hands have done a lot of work, and I'm eternally grateful for what my hands are capable of exchanging, you know, energy with a patient. That being said, financially, every dollar that my clinic was able to generate was wrapped around these two hands also. And while in the beginning of practice and we're all jazzed and happy and doing whatever, like I'll do 100 hours. I love it. And that there's a lot to that. And anyone who's listening to this, I'm sure can understand that. And so what I saw that this also did was, without selling out, without compromising my values or my morals or my principles as a practitioner, I could implement a tool that could do something different that my hands can't do, but add still a tremendous amount of value to my patient and earn some amount of income that wasn't tied to my hands. And when I saw that as a business opportunity, and I saw that as a patient, having access to something that they couldn't normally have, I said, this could really change the landscape for a lot of chiropractors out there that are living that same story, which is, probably the overwhelming majority of us. And so writing the book gave me the opportunities to start doing more speaking. And I love to, I'm sure we've had enough conversations. I love to talk about this stuff, and I'm happy to share as much as I can. And, so for me to get called to different organizations and different conferences, and then for me to start my own, training programs and bring people to me to actually teach them, like, I just love talking about it, teaching people and helping people set up these clinics, because I know what patients are getting. And then I know what the doctor behind the scenes is getting as a result of that. And to me, that's like, if that allows people to do maybe not more work with their hands, but more quality work with their hands, because they don't have to, there's the different, there's like the, I have to do this. And then there's the, like, I want to do this. If we can create the space to make sure that we always love it and always want to do it, and it just takes the edge off of, the financials a little bit, I think that's a win-win for everybody.
I love the motivation behind this is, one, to deliver a supportive aspect, or even another therapy that has value. So we're helping our patient, we're bringing greater understanding, awareness, and education to the community, simultaneously elevating chiropractic and the chiropractic profession and your colleagues with those additional resources. It's a three-pronged influence: the patient, the practitioner, more patients, because there are more practitioners, and therefore a community awareness and education on a natural health paradigm, moving them away from drug-based, medicine-based approaches to a natural health model for their own life and their own health. I think it's beautiful that you're doing that, and I think people watching this, they'll know where to find you. They'll be able to reach out, which we have your details there. So I think it's a great gift. And as we wrap up here, and I just want to acknowledge and appreciate you for that. You've done this work, and it's had these great opportunities and impacts coming your way. What are your suggestions or thoughts to chiropractors watching this, thinking, as Dr. Patrick said to you, write the book? What are your thoughts to those practitioners who have procrastinated, who may not have felt like they can write a book, or that they don't know what the next step is? Where would you tell them to start?
So everybody, listen, call my mother. Okay. If you call my mother, I'll give you her phone number. She will tell you that I am the last human on the planet that she would have ever thought would stay in school as long as I stayed in school, go back to school at 40 to learn more, let alone write a book or 2 books or anything like that. Everybody, if you have passion in your life, if you love what you do and you love the impact you have on the people around you, you have a story to tell and a story to share. And that's all. We complicate the book and we make it into all kinds of things that it just isn't. I am not a great writer. I am not a good typer. I still type like this. I don't use all my fingers. I'm awful when it comes to all of that stuff. If I could write a book, anybody could write a book. The question is, what's your message, right? What's in your mind? Again, mine was originally out of frustration. I'm like, how many times can I say the same thing? I'm going to write it down and just hand it to people. It started out, it was going to be like a brochure, right? And then I'm like, oh my God, this is not a brochure. This is like a packet. I'm like, this isn't a packet. This is probably like an internet ebook. And literally it was all of those things. So I started with like this pamphlet on stress, and then it became this like little pamphlet, and then it became like a 17-page PDF that I would, electronically send to people. And I'm like, this isn't the whole story. I need to get the whole story. And so finally I sat down and actually like wrote the book. But, to me, that's the process is that it's what's your message? What are you trying to get out? And just get this much out, and then realize how much there is to add, and then realize what the full story is. And something, a process like that could really draw out an amazing story. There are people and companies that now specialize in helping. So if you have a message and you're like, I need to get this out and I need to get it out in the next 6 weeks, like you can hire somebody for 8 to 20 grand, depending on how much help you want. And they will guide you and hold you accountable. And here are all the steps, and you're going to get it done. And if you're not in that much of a rush, but you really want to know that your story is getting out there, then you can just start creating it, and it will build, it'll build naturally over time.
Start creating, everyone. Dr. Jason, love the opportunity to connect with you again. I always appreciate the time. You bring such insight to every conversation.
Thanks, man.
Everyone, grab a copy, put in your waiting area. It's exactly what I do to make it accessible, to share the message. All right, Dr. Jason, let's go change the world together.
Thanks so much.